friends. My name is Hannah, and on my podcast and channel here, I just I'm talking about all the things that I'm learning, thinking, and feeling when it comes to learning how to have a sustainable lifestyle in the world, earn a sustainable income in the world, have rewarding relationships in the world as a neurodiverse person. A you know there's a lot of I think even maybe neurodiverse is too wide a lens because some people don't identify with that term, but it just anyway, just sharing the things that I'm learning related to like the mindset changes I'm making as I'm like, okay, how can I accept myself more? How can I be more aware of myself? How can I partner with myself better so that I can have the eyes and the emotional attunement to recognize um and go towards and correctly respond to other people, because life is all about other people, connecting with other people, being a person, connecting with other people, protecting ourselves from people, having great times with people, creating amazing experiences and opportunities with people. And yeah, and if you're like me or like 100% of the rest of the world, you have been through situations in your life that were really painful because it had to do with other people being factors in painful experiences. And it's really interesting when we are handed down these scripts, these narratives for how to interpret and work with ourselves, how to interpret and communicate with other people, and how some ways of inner and outer communication can cause or heighten distress and pain, and how other forms of communication can bring in, safety and mutual protection and peace. So, yeah, really, um, I don't know. I just wanted to talk about some of the things that have been on my mind lately. Um, you know, I will put links to some of the things I talk about, but and first of all, I also wanted to say that if you have like any kind of if anything that you've written, any YouTube video that you've made, anything that you feel is on this topic, like don't be afraid to put your link in the comments. Like, I'm not saying that um it will necessarily be compatible or of interest to the topics I'm trying to talk about personally, but it might be of interest to somebody else who is, you know, happens upon this video. And I also, I am always looking to learn more through interacting with people. I know I just said that very vague. That's the most vague thing I could have said. How do I say that better? I'm wanting to um have more conversations, you know, conversations on these topics. So if you have something that you've expressed that it shares something related to these topics, like I want to hear it. Then maybe I will feel moved to express something back, and it is like the opening of a conversation of sorts. So just yeah, anyway, a couple things that I wanted to talk about is, I've been really, this is more personal, but I've been really reflecting lately, like, what time of my life even am I in? Like, what is this? Like, am gone at house sits, I'm home, I am, doing my best to earn money however I can, and then in the midst of everything, I'm trying to learn how to express myself creatively through writing, through talking, maybe through other avenues I'll figure out, but just express myself in a way that feels like I've captured something that is extremely like moving and crucial to me, that feeling of like the things that protect and ward off from the torture from the things that I've experienced in my life as really painful, damaging, distracting, completely brainwashing, to have me see myself, see the world in a way that just led to so much chaos and unhappiness. What are the things that are like totally guarding and protecting me from that? The things that I have learned, the things that I'm learning, um, and self acceptance. Yeah, anyway, so I'm just thinking about all these, trying to figure out how do I creatively express myself more, and trying to be like, how do I yes, I have this aspiration for one day, maybe being a consultant to, you know, maybe some type of social services or mental health atmospheres, a consultant for like neurodiversity, justice, like how to better support your clients from their perspective, assuming all clients fit into the neurodiversity category, and just in general teaching these providers how to support themselves better, acknowledging that we all are neurodiverse in some way. We a lot of the scripts that we use to talk to ourselves or talk to others or solve problems are just not helpful, and I'm not exactly sure how to crystallize it all or what my main driving perspective is, but I know I think about that as something I could possibly do in the future as a career or as a sustainable source of income, from a consultant kind of point of view. But I'm thinking about this like 10 years down the road. And so in the meantime, I'm just like, what feels interesting and inspiring to me? And it really is like having more conversations with people who care about these topics. And when I say these topics, like I haven't even quite crystallized what that is. Like, yes, it has to do with self partnership, it has to do with creative expression, it has to do with authenticity, it has to do with making money. But I don't really know, like I just don't know how to sum it up, and in between, um we can have I have, maybe you have these, just like, you go in and out of these modes, and you have these periods where you're like I'm just trying to get by, like I'm just enjoying movies, like I am just like, no, it's not the most optimal way I would like to be spending my life, but yes, I'm also grateful to have instances of um you know feeling that safety of zoning out. Lately I've been watching a lot of movies since I've been back home, and in the past I would shame myself for it. I'd be like, oh, I'm not productive, I'm wasting my energy, I'm blah blah blah. And this time I was just like, no, my values are to allow myself to be real about the resources, the accessible, for me, accessible resources I have access to, um and like the entirety of what my life has been like, and be like, no, like watching movies has a function in my life, remembering, and I'll be doing something else with my time once I have different resources come in. But for the meantime, like watching movies for me, it has always been about. I found solace in movies, so much solace when I was a teenager. Um, so much, there's chaos, being misunderstood, um, being isolated as a teenager, and I bought all these VHS tapes, and I found this TV with a built-in VHS player at this house that we had moved to, that someone had left behind. It was this really old TV, like little tiny like screen, like I guess the screen was smaller than my laptop screen, but it was I bought like a ton of these, like they were 5 cents a piece, I think, something like that, 5 or 10 cents a piece at a thrift store. All these VHS tapes. This was probably in about like 2008 or 2009 maybe. I bought all of these tapes, and I would just be in my room watching all these movies, and I feel like on one hand it at the time I felt some of this guilt, and I was stigmatized for like, oh, like you know, I'm isolating myself. I'm like trash. I'm not productive. I'm weird. I'm never going to amount to anything. Like look at her. She's alone in her room. Just, I had all that on me. But what the movies were serving for me was a sense of solace, a sense of like, oh wow, life can actually feel safe. Like life can feel enjoyable, life can feel inspiring. Like I'm really interested in this art, this form of communication, this form of like getting across different stories, learning different stories and narratives that we can have access to, that we can use in our own lives. I'm interested in just like stories of things like storytelling, like what goes on in the world. Interested in um yeah, and I think that honestly, movies help me a lot more than I've given it credit for, because as a teenager, without movies, I think my mental health would have been a lot worse. I would have blamed myself a lot more. I would have been lost in that kind of religious, closed off world, all about shame, all about hating myself, all about being controlled by others. And I don't know if I would have, but maybe I would have like grown up just to not do what I wanted to do, which was to feel like I had no choice but to just be a housewife, terrified of the outside world, feeling like the only way life could be okay is by being really committed to this like religious cult kind of ideal. Um, I do think about that, like movies, like so many movies that gave me this sense of adventure. I mean, I had that from when I was younger, from my parents definitely, they had a bit of that before they started to have a lot of troubles when I was younger. They they definitely gave me that sense of adventure, and we'd go on like camping trips, and um they encouraged that in me, to have this sense of like awe, the natural world, and like yeah. So I do think about, though, like how movies, they helped me to instill even more of that, like that sense of adventure, that sense of like intrigue, that all the horror movies, the thriller movies, the action movies, the adventure movies, just being like, I don't know, wanting to go on an adventure. And that is the only reason why I opened up to doing work exchanges on farms in my early 20s, when I was 20 years old. I was homeless at the time, and I was living in my car. It's a story. I don't know if I should go into that now, but um I started doing work exchanges on farms, and just seeing I so hard, and especially in my late teens, like I just, everything I coped with was by seeing it as like an adventure. Like I was a character in like a big adventure, like the Hobbit type of story, um and just, I really love that movies also help me to see things as being like not that serious, being like, we're gonna die anyways. Like being human is like communal, like can't take it too deadly seriously, gotta have fun with it, gotta just like live a little while it's here. really love those kind of points of view that I had infused in me by watching movies. And, you know, yeah, there's a lot to be said for how it's interesting trying to trace back and always have this pressure. I mean, I put pressure on myself trying to be like, how do I reconcile the decisions that I made under, doing the best that I could when I was younger, making the best decisions I had access to, um, with the resources I had, the experiences I had, the knowledge I had, the support I had had, the capability of self partnership and self compassion I had at the time, just reconciling that with the period of years that I had where it was just really pressured on me, and I had drilled into my head to, be hard on myself, overly, take too much responsibility, take too much blame on myself for what had happened. Um, and, to hate and harm myself and turn against my natural instincts and inclinations. And, that's been the most painful thing that has happened to me over the past decade. I'm 33 now. It has been that transition that I learned through mental health environments, through addiction environments, through just being a person in the world, seeing the common ways that people just use to try to define and solve problems. It's to like demonize and then try to like put pressure of shame, punishment, terror in order to try to change. And that disconnected me with myself so much, with my capacity for self-trust. So, it's really interesting, I think, when you were in this portion where I feel like I'm at now, where, some moments I feel different than others, of course, but I think the general theme of where I'm at right now is amidst all the messiness, like, can I have, and I generally feel like this, but I know there's a lot of times where I go against it, and I have to notice where I'm just like, how can I be consistently supportive of myself, compassionate, empathetic towards myself, not like, what are the things that I innately just like, I'm like, oh, of course that's bad. Like, me watching movies is bad, you know? Like, me, um, and being like, well, you know, I have to, take the inspiration from it that I can, take the rest from it that I can, take the connection to my personal soul that I can, and with my whole life experiences and what it means to me, and use that to try to carve a better path to the future, or a more self-aware path. It's a better path because it is a path that is more self-aware of like how to fully accept and love and really cherish, because I think it's not enough for me to, like, just as to the same extreme that I've like hated and harmed and condemned myself, I really want to find that emotional place and emotional narrative, having the words to describe it, to where I am able to see myself in the opposite of that, of like, where is all the like beauty, strength, courage, um, positive things, the things I normally do, the way that it is and maybe always has been a part of my innate creative process, and not demonizing myself for it, and in that, it causes less stress in me, it causes inspiration, so maybe I will be able to just like take what I need from watching the movie, and then I will feel safe, I will feel inspired, and so then I won't feel like I have to keep on zoning out watching movies, or I will feel like there's other I have more energy, more inspiration to engage in other activities that will replace movies, because movies are just there because anything is just there because it is what we're most drawn to in the moment and what is available. So, yeah, so that's like kind of the part of the creative process and that I'm at right now lately. And it reminds me also of this Substack post that I wrote that I'll link, but I'm sorry I can't remember her name. I'm not going to even try to guess because I don't want to say the wrong thing. But she was talking about how rest is safety. Like a lot of the times we tell ourselves, like, rest is when we are, you know, laying down, or rest is whatever. But it's like, okay, aside from all the normal ideas we have of what rest is, those automatic assumptions, what allows us to actually feel rested, which is safety. And safety comes in many forms, but especially safety comes from being supportive of our own selves and not antagonizing ourselves, not antagonizing and finding a way to villainize and point out so harshly for everything that we do, like all the ways we're doing it wrong, all the ways we could lead to a downfall, all the ways we could be perceived as like betraying or being harmful or being like villainous to the world. Like, I did that when I was homeless, especially being like telling myself, that was part of the way I coped when I was homeless in my mid-20s, is telling myself like, at least I'm a good person because I don't have possessions, I'm not greedy, I'm not up there on my high horse protected while everybody else is suffering. I did tell myself stuff a lot like that to, as a coping mechanism when you should never be in the situations that force you to become homeless, and you're just trying to feel like there's some kind of positive things of why you're choosing to be homeless. um and it's not really a choice when you're coerced and there isn't an actual emotionally viable other option. It's like, it's that coerced form of choosing. But anyway, that's besides the point. The the Substack post, yeah, she was just talking about like, what is rest, what makes you feel safe. And I'm trying to really keep on practicing, like, as I just keep on going about the normal things in my little day. I'm so glad I'm not at house sits with dogs right now. It's not so bad when the dogs are like small and calm, but when the dogs are like really, really high energy, or really, they don't have their needs met very often or very well on a regular basis with their parents. Um, and then so you aren't given an accurate idea of like what this dog actually needs to thrive. They're just like, yeah, the dog is fine. Like, you just have to feed him twice a day, and you're like, oh, actually, this dog is like, crazy if you're. Anyway, so okay, I'm getting distracted with that, but basically, as I'm home now, I'm really grateful to be like, dun dun. I just downloaded TikTok it wasn't even 2 weeks ago, I don't think. I think it was like 1 week. I finally, um, anyway, that's besides the point. But I'm trying to learn how to use TikTok and see how it can be used as like a under the radar kind of way to continue having conversations in community that feels like safe and more personal. Just trying to use it as a communication device, but in a more like friend based way instead of just like a. Anyway, got distracted. But yeah, in my everyday life, now that I'm back home from the houses, I'm just trying to be like, okay, how can I provide that safety for me in just all the normal things I do, the normal inclinations I have? Like, yes, I've been going on walks with my boyfriend, I've been going to the gym with him, I'm so grateful that he has been suggesting these things to because it's a lot easier for me to get on somebody's train rather than like trying to get my train up and going, you know? Um, but we do yeah, we've been doing things. I've been cooking, I've been but really trying to have that rest, that sense of safety. And it's really interesting noticing like how much I am put this pressure on myself to try to perform or try to like, oh, I have to know how to creatively express perfectly right now, or like, you know, um it's really interesting noticing the past like 5 days or whatever for me, how challenging it really is to relearn how to provide safety for ourselves with the way that I talk to myself, with the way I interpret things. And it's really interesting also when I have limited access to resources being like support, mutual support, like trusting relationships, money. Like there are a lot of types of resources that I don't really have that backlog of stuff that's based on the past, to use in my I'm so grateful for my boyfriend, and for my apartment that I get to live in. But there's yeah, and in general I noticed I think a lot about lack. And I think it's really good um when learning how to help provide rest and safety for ourselves to for me, it's essential to like not put too much responsibility on myself, not put that burden, that pressure, that demand, especially knowing everything I've gone through, like not according to who I aspire to be, who I wish I could have been, who I would have been if I had different resources, but according to who I actually am based on everything I actually have gone through. Seeing myself through that lens. And in that lens, I think in the past I thought I would like feel like decimated, like, oh God, like I am disabled, I am like forever doomed, I am like easy prey, all these really unhelpful narratives. But now I'm like, actually, I feel stronger, like knowing more who I actually am. I feel it because it gives more weight to the things I do, to the things that actually are relevant to me. Because it's like in perspective for who I actually am, like the things that I do is more, it has a different weight to it. It is, yeah. So yeah, I've just been thinking about like, how do I provide that safety for myself in my normal everyday activities, and how do I in safe ways that feel interesting, how do I try to take like continued small risks, small steps to gaining more inspiration, more, you could say resources, I mean like energetic resources, creative inspiration. To me it's the same thing, like relationships with other people or access to other people's creative expressions that are inspiring in some way. Um, yeah, and something I wanted to mention also is that I watched this Kristen Stewart interview a few days ago. Um, and she was talking about this movie. I'm sorry, don't remember the name. The Something of Water, I think it's called. It comes out in January. But in this, I'll link the interview also because it was really, really good. But she's talking about, and I'm so grateful when there's like normal, normal, successful people that prove that like these are just like eternal human concepts, that are relatable to all human beings. But she was just talking about this idea of like how it is really messy, like the healing process and the coming back to yourself, coming back to what is real. Like, like I think so many of the times, like we feel a messiness, we feel fear towards all the what ifs. And so that's why we don't express, I mean, I can speak for myself at least. That's why I don't express some things, because I'm like, with creative expression, like, it can't be messy. It has to be perfect. It has to be exactly what I imagine. It has to be acceptable according to prior examples I've had programmed into me of what is acceptable or what is safe. And just remembering that, like, I like the messy is so beautiful because it's raw and real, and it is in that messiness is where, and what I've been practicing in my own life, that's where we learn how to be supporters of our own self, no matter what's going on externally. And it can be really hard because sometimes, we're feeling a lot of pain, and it's like half of us is like, I'm feeling so much pain, and the other half is like, but I still support you. Like, saying that to ourselves, like, I still support you, and like just trying to figure out what are those narratives of love and holding and compassion we can have for ourselves. And it's really hard when, we're not meant to do this all alone. We are meant to have community that is safe. I don't think it is aspirational or sustainable. It is aspirational, but not sustainable to be the only support of ourselves, like, it is essential to learn how to communicate these messy things, these human things, these things that we don't yet know how to say perfectly, to how to communicate these things with other people, um, how to just, put it out there in some way. And, well, I forgot what I was exactly saying, but yeah, something about how expressing messy is, it develops that sense of self-trust, honestly. Like, I'm learning for myself, because it's like that is where self-trust comes back in, to be like, no matter what my initial thoughts are, if I think like, oh, like, I shouldn't be doing this, something bad is going to happen, or it's like overriding, to be like, actually, I have a conviction in this. Actually, it is what is real for me in this moment. It's okay for me to express what is real for me in the moment. It is okay for me to express what my heart is actually looking for, instead of always expressing something that isn't quite me, so that if other people like try to decimate or attack me for it, they're not really attacking me. They're just attacking this thing that I wasn't really invested in anyways. And it's that sense that, like, no, I will not turn against myself in order to appease other people or to try to control other people's behaviors or words. Sometimes in survival situations, we have to give that performance externally to prevent other people from harming us or punishing us or whatever. But we have to always remember, like, it's an external act, and always have that internal part of ourself that we're still connected to, that is like, I am here with you in silence. Like, I don't care what you have to perform in order to, like, protect yourself from someone else. But, we just have to have that, and remember how to have that internal self trust. And yeah, I do think um a lot about how it sucks to be at this period in history, because in general that's the only reason why we are all in this type of situation to some degree, where we do have to relearn how to talk and think of ourselves, and talk and think with other people, in ways that are, and it's really hard to know what to do when other people are, using violence, or less extremely, maybe they're just using more like emotional violence, or maybe they aren't even using, emotional violence. I think is also, this is kind of a sidetrack, but I think emotional violence is also a little bit of a, what is that called, window of tolerance type of thing, because, or a relationship thing, is based on who is saying it, is based on how much energy we have to give. Because it's based on how healed we currently are, how much energy we have in that moment, because I really do believe in that idea that somebody can only like harm verbally. I mean, coercion, depends on the situation, but in general, if it's just a random person out on the street, somebody can only hurt me to the degree that I internalize what they're saying, you know? And I'm really getting, I'm just really practicing, having a fair understanding of myself, and not internalizing anything that is portraying me in a cruel, you know, punishing kind of way, and even energy draining, you know, if like people want you to continuously worry, um and be questioning always, like, oh god, what if, like that is also, anyway, I'm kind of getting distracted, but I'm not saying this in the best way possible by any means, but all these topics are things I think about, things I want to learn how to put into words better, so that when I am really tired, so that when I am just casually talking, I can have like a consolidated perspective, that I'm communicating it more directly, more succinctly. Um, uh, and yeah, that's a part of the messiness, right? The messiness of accepting sometimes, like, I won't be perfect, or maybe I am perfect for that moment because it is all that I could be. And even if we aren't perfect, or we, you know, in the future, the way to help ourselves act differently is, for one, maybe look at the benefits, the wisdom, the necessity, and how we were acting imperfect, because sometimes it's not even imperfect. We are just, people harm us for it, or in the past they did, so we think that we have to call something in our behavior imperfect, or, you know, sometimes it isn't even, and we should focus more on looking at, like, no, what are the positive qualities, the wisdom, the the things that are maybe messy, but it is like stabilizing, and like, just like, real. Like looking at those things, and then also considering, like, no matter what, if something is like done wrong, like shame and punishment and terror shouldn't be the ways to persuade somebody to change or try something different or consider themselves. um that, you know, I know that that's just my role to play, because I know that I've considered also the role of, or understanding the role of other people, is like, it is kind of a form of love in some ways, to give people a message however you can, even if it's done in an extremely messy way. I understand sometimes people are in that mode, like trying to express however messy, like, I'm in pain, I'm hurting. Maybe, you know, people use violence in that way to try to express it. Anyway, I'm really getting off base, but in general, I wanted to share also, I've been reading a book called the On Becoming a Person by Carl Rogers. And I've only listened to like the first 30 minutes, I think, but I really like, in that book, he's talking about sorry, I'm feeling really tired. I've been talking for almost 40 minutes now, and you know, I still don't feel like what I'm expressing is being expressed in the way that it feels right, or enjoyable for me. But I'm still trying to, like, be true to myself by saying the things that I am thinking about. and that are real to me. So it's hard to know what to do when you're like, you know. And also, I've been just talking about stressful topics. I'm not talking about it very well, but the thoughts and feelings I'm having when I'm talking about it is definitely stressful. So I can definitely remember that maybe I don't always have to go into these topics. Although I do also want to talk about them because it's extremely important to me. And, I don't think I have to demonize it that I'm feeling stressed out, that I'm crying as a result of stress. That doesn't mean I did anything wrong that needs to change. It's all about, yeah, I don't really mind it that much. Okay, anyway, so this book that I'm reading, or listening to the audiobook of, On Becoming a Person by Carl Rogers. I really am finding it really strengthening and encouraging what he's talking about in this book, because it's about, like, I guess it's kind of therapy critical, but it's talking about how so much therapy is built on this sense of authority of, like, you are being given something you couldn't possibly understand by an authority who has, like, the magical all-seeing eye type of thing. And for a lot of people, what is actually therapeutic to them is the interpersonal nature of relationships, and people, sorry, my nose is running now, but, like, people reminding them that they know themselves better than they think. They can trust themselves. And I don't know, just the therapy happens not because the therapist is extremely technically skilled and has all the best theories and all that, um, or can, like, deliver all this perfect information, but it's just by the nature of the relationship, like how they are seen, that the person is like, oh my god, like, I'm actually seen in a respected way. It's safe for me to be as I am with this person. And I'm not saying that in the right way. It's more nuanced than that, of course. But I just really like realizing in this book that there's, like, a legitimate, whatever, like, intellectual, what's that word? Not intellectual. I can't think of the word right now, but like, having to do with school, going to school, being in the, I can't think of it. But in this world, there is this, it's like a known legitimized thing that people have written, academic, that's what I'm looking for, the word academic. Like, people have written papers about it, written books about it, these respected professionals. And that's kind of my point of view of receiving therapy or giving therapeutic experiences, is that it all happens in authentic relationship, not when the relationship is coerced. Because, or not coerced, but there has to be more investment just than, like, money, where it's like money up front. Maybe a therapeutic relationship can involve, for me, I think it can involve, money and trading of resources, collaboration, because that's just a part of being a human. But the difference with seeing, like, a formal therapist is it's all about, like no money, no therapy. You know what I mean? No money, no time. Like, that is a very different view to have of yourself, to be like, oh, this is, like, the only context in which I can get support. Um, or, just feeling like, oh, this is the only context in which someone is willing to think well of me or be compassionate towards me, or, anyway. So that I'm liking that audiobook, but I've also just been really low energy, so I'm not sure if I'm going to keep on listening to it. I think it's one of those things that I have to, like, listen to it with somebody, listen to it, we pause it occasionally and talk about it. Because if I just try to listen to it on my own, like, I'm gonna zone out. My mind's gonna be all over the place. I'm just bored of doing everything by myself, basically. And it doesn't motivate me to just listen to something like, oh, I'll take notes or oh, I'll listen. It's like, no, I want everything I do to be giving me like that ongoing feeling of like in the moment relating with an actual person. And anyway, um, hearing someone's thoughts and reflections that I might not have and just bonding over that. So, yeah, so this is definitely long, 45 minutes. Wow. But yeah, just thought I would share some of the things that I'm thinking about lately that have been on my mind. And don't yeah, like I said at the beginning, don't be afraid to share some type of creative expression that you made that is also on these sort of topics of like knowing yourself more. That's a very, very vague topic. Um, but yeah, just like self-compassion. I guess that's really what I want to hear more about is like topics of like self-compassion and um, finding joy in doing things and trying new things that was only possible through self-compassion. Anyway, okay. Take care. Bye.